Okay guys, we're out here this morning. It's pretty early. Kind of humid this morning, but we're going to be taking these old steps off our house. We've got new ones to put on. Something we've been wanting to do for over a year now. These are getting in pretty bad shape. This is kind of what it looks like. These ain't coming out. What I was afraid of.
Just pick them up and get them off?
Yeah.
That was easier, wasn't it?
That's what happens when stuff rots.
In South Mississippi.
In South Mississippi, that's the humidity for you. Now that one ain't coming on. This is treated lumber with treated deck screws and everything that's not supposed to rust. No, y'all, that don't work. Of course, you have to realize these steps has been here since 2003, so they've been here a pretty good while. But there's no sense in us taking the steps all to pieces to get them off the house, because we're in a, we kind of trying to get this done pretty quick. We're just undoing the screws off of the risers here. We've got our treads here pre-cut for the house, and one of the things we learned with the steps we just took off of the house here, because we live in such a hot, humid, wet environment, that the lumber just will not hold up. Even though it's treated, it will not hold up under these conditions. We went back with these here and we decided to use a good heavy based oil paint on them to maybe help keep them from absorbing so much water being up under the steps where they can't get any air. They'll come in here and they'll sit just like this. And what we've done is, I'll show you something here. The reason we was having so much trouble taking the steps off, the previous screws are these just Phillips head screws. They're just a pain in the butt. We've gone back. We're going to be using a Torx head screw. This Torx head is a little bit different, more modern screw. We're going to see if we can't get a little bit better job out of the Torx than we do the Phillips head. Now we're putting the screws on the inside of the outside runners here and treads, because we don't want to see the screw heads from the outside for aesthetic reasons. What we've got here, this is what's called window wrap tape. It's what you put around windows on a house whenever you're building them. The thing that we learned about our other boards sitting on the concrete is the concrete stays wet up underneath the steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide some pieces of this rubber tape with the aluminum foil part up underneath this, so that the water from the concrete does not wick up into the bottoms of our lumber and rot the bottoms of it there. Now, we're going to try to get just enough slack to see maybe we can scoot it up under there. Now, we don't want it sticking too far out in the front, because once we get this in here, it'll be permanent. Okay guys, one of the next things I want to do is I want to take my framing square, because we want to make sure we get our steps started off square with the house. So I run it against the sill on the house out here on my first board. I want to make sure that it's good and square to the foundation of the house. We don't want them to start off crooked, so we've got it good and square, and I've done that on each one of these. I've come down through here to make sure I have them every one good and square, because the first board you put on will determine everything. So we want to make sure we start off right. Okay guys, as with any remodeling job at all, we've come into a situation here. The slab is broken because there's a root from the tree over here growed under the slab through here, and what it's done is it has raised the slab up right here, and as a result this tread right here is high. So what we've got to do now is we put the level, we put our board across here, our riser, and we've leveled it, and we've determined we've got to cut 1/4 of an inch off the bottom of this one in order to get everything back down to where the boards will touch all the other ones and get them level. So we got to take this one back off, cut the bottom off 1/4 of an inch, and put it back on. It's just one of those things about remodeling that you run into. Don't ever think anything's going to be as easy as it looks like it is. Okay guys, this is our risers. Our risers are white here on the house. And the riser on the very top one is the first one that we want to put in, because it is how we will level the steps across. We're going to make sure that we have an even measurement on each end from the end of our stair treads, so that we make sure we get started off right, because what happens is these stair treads may be warped or crooked, so we want to start at the top and work our way to the bottom. That way we can straighten them if we need to. Okay, we're going to make sure our riser is flush with the top of our stair tread right here, so that we don't have a gap underneath it, because if there's a gap at the bottom, that doesn't matter because the tread is going to cover it up. We just want to make sure, and you don't want to get too close to the top of this with a screw, because you'll bust this right here a lot of times. So you want to stay down about 1.5 inches from it for your first screw. Okay guys, one of the things we want to mention to y'all about anytime you put boards down on a deck, steps, porch, whatever, look at the grains in the wood here. You see how these grains are arched over this away? This is always the top. If you put this up like this, when water gets in this and soaks in, it will automatically shed it. If you turn this board over, like that right there, when water gets in here, it'll cup and hold in these grains right in here, and this will cause your wood to rot a whole lot faster than it normally would. This is nature's way of shedding water. So when you put it down, make sure you always put your boards down with the grains running this way in it rather than the other way. We go ahead and put all 3 of our boards on here. We're going to make sure we've got a 1-inch overhang right here. That's what I want on all my treads, is a 1-inch overhang. Now, sometimes you may have to rip this back board just a little bit to get that 1-inch overhang right here on this very first one. And then we want to make sure our overhang on the ends is right. We want to make sure our tread is flush with our riser. Now a lot of these boards are still going to be warped or cupped or something like that, but that's one of the things you have to do when you're screwing them down. Once we get this one in here, we're going to work our way down and try to get these steps screwed off good and solid before we move on to the next one. It really doesn't matter when you get to this point right here which one of these you screw down first, unless they have a lot of bad bows in them. Now we're going to start with the very back one because we're going to try to keep it flush up against the front here. Now I will show you a way that you can straighten these up. I think I'll do that as we're shooting this. We're going to take these 2 back off now that we know we got the 1-inch overhang. We're going to start back here, and I'm going to show you how to straighten these as we go. This, it's got just a little bit of a gap back here, so what we're going to do is put a screw in here. It's called toenailing. We're going to put a screw right here, and that closes that gap up right there. It helps to straighten the board up, plus it pulls it down. We'll put our screws in the top. And you want to run them down just a little bit below flush at the top. You don't want to just sink them way deep down in the lumber.
The steps are looking great. Danny did a good job. So I've got them painted. We've got a string here to keep people from walking on them for a day or two. And we're going to move into the kitchen. We're fixing to start painting in the kitchen. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.